Welcome to Love Light, the only podcast dedicated to bright, fine art photography. Hosted by Sarah Jane Ethan, Love Light is here to celebrate all things bright, pretty and pastel. At Love Light, white is the new black and beauty is in the detail. This is your place to relax, a place to belong, a place to be inspired and connect with like-minded colleagues who share your passion for light and beauty. So come and introduce yourself in the Love Light Facebook group and subscribe to the Love Light YouTube, podcast and Instagram for your weekly dose of inspiration and connect with bright, fine art photographers from around the world. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Love Light podcast. Today we have got a very special treat for you because we've got Isabelle Hesselberg, who is an amazing photographer who is from Sweden. She lives on a little island outside the city of Stockholm with her husband Daniel and her children Levi and Erin. And she has been a photographer for almost 10 years, coming up for her 10-year anniversary. So that is quite an achievement. She has been awarded one of the top 100 wedding photographers in the world by the SLR Lounge. And she runs workshops all over Europe every year for film photography and for wedding photography. So it is an absolute honor to have Isabelle here. And I'm so excited to get to know her. Welcome, Isabelle. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. That sounds like you're talking about someone else. It's like, who is that person? But yeah, thank you so much for asking and having me. And like I said to you a little bit before, it's always super awkward seeing yourself as you record and also hearing about yourself. So, but thank you so much.
Totally. And I think like we were talking earlier before we started this recording that it's weird sometimes to stop and think about, I have actually achieved things, because so often we are our own worst critics and we just look at where we're not yet and what we haven't done yet and what our pictures aren't that we want them to be. And we can live in this little world of what we want to do and what we're not doing. And then, like you said, you're coming up for your 10-year anniversary. That's quite something to kind of step back and go, oh, wow, like actually I have come a long way since I started.
Yeah. It's when you start to think about it and when people ask, so how long have you been shooting weddings? I'm like, next year it's going to be 10 years. I started my company, Two Brides Photography, in 2010, or shot my first weddings in 2010. And I never ever could, anticipate being shooting weddings 10 years on from there. So from the beginning, for me, it was just a fun project. It was like a hobby thing because I worked as a photographer and a retoucher, but that would add a big commercial studio with fashion and commercial photography. So this was something that I did for fun with a friend on weekends to get away, because we had little kids back then. They were tiny, and the only way for us to hang out together, without kids, was we're like, we want to do something on the weekends. We were both photographers, and we were like, what can we do together, And we were like, we saw, I actually saw like a friend of a friend who shot weddings as a couple. They were like two photographers. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. That's something we could do together. So that's how this whole thing started. It was just for fun, a hobby, and to get away, to be able to hang out. So it was never any big plan or anything behind it, because I don't know for you, but coming into wedding photography from the commercial world, or like shooting that type of thing, wedding photography was just not something you really talked about. It wasn't something you aimed to do. It was just like, what do you shoot? I shoot weddings. People are like, okay. And so, it was for fun. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
How fascinating. So how did you end up with that first wedding? How did that come about?
That was from a friend of a friend, like getting married. So it's like, you're a photographer, you can shoot. I'm like, yeah, we can shoot the wedding, so yeah.
So how did you find that first wedding being so different from what you'd done before? How did you find it different, and what was your experience of that first wedding?
That it was really, really, really difficult. It is, because it's an uncontrolled environment, is an uncontrolled event, and you really have to be able to adapt, think quickly, be on your feet, just like adapt to every given situation with not only different types of light, but weather, people's emotions, like everything that goes on. So quickly discovered that it's really hard to be good at all of those things that you need to be good at during a wedding. Not only do you need to be good at, shooting portraits in whatever shitty light you're given?
Yeah.
And, document the day, being able to foresee what's going to happen and position yourself there and have the right settings on your camera. You also have to be really good dealing with people, because these aren't models or, people within, a creative industry or whatever. These are just real people on a day where a lot is at stake, so there are nerves, there are family relationships that are kind of you don't know sometimes. So there are so many things you need to be good at, not only from a photography perspective, but from being a people person,
managing people.
So I realized this is really, really hard, but also I think either you kind of love it or you hate it, because it is difficult and it is stressful and you have a lot of pressure on yourself. So, but after, that first wedding, I realized not only was it hard, but it was also super, super challenging and fun. And I like a good challenge. So, so yeah.
Absolutely, because I started doing weddings with my husband, so he was already doing it. So I just went as his assistant, and I was thinking, oh, this is great fun. I don't know what he's complaining about. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I did my first one on my own, I was like, okay, it's really stressful.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, when I first started out, I didn't really have any expectations. I just, went there and shot, and realizing, oh, this is kind of hard. From this part of the day, it was like, this looks like shit, I can't use this. So yeah, being good at, reportage or documentary style type of photography, portraits, lifestyle, food, party photography, like club photography, it's like all of those things. So you really need to be very, very skilled in all types of different sorts of photography. That's how I feel.
So true. Yeah. And so how did you originally get into commercial photography? Was that straight from school? Is that what you studied from school, or what?
No. I actually started out, I was studying religion. I was, from the very, very beginning, I was considering actually becoming a priest.
Really fascinating.
So that was my goal. I wanted to work within the church, and realizing pretty quickly Swedish church was not, back then wasn't very open-minded. Mm-hmm. So we have, let's say, put it like this, we have a lot of creativity in our family. So drawing, painting, writing poetry, all that kind of stuff has always been like a hobby of mine. And I studied, back when I studied, I needed an extra job, so I worked extra hours at a tattoo studio. And the studio needed photos of, the tattoos, just like regular, like, what they have in every tattoo studio. You have pictures of the tattoos they made. So I worked as the shop assistant. So they asked me, can you take the pictures? Because, I'm the assistant. So I'm like, yes, I can do that. Because back then I had a boyfriend who, his dad was a photographer. So I asked, I'm like, can I borrow a camera from you? Because I need to take some pictures at my extra job, I do at evenings. And he's like, yeah, you can borrow this. So I started doing just super basic, like pictures of tattoos in the studio. And those were up on the walls. And then, so the studio was in a very artsy area of Stockholm. So we had lots of interesting clients coming there to get tattoos. And then we had a guy who was coming in every Friday because he was working on like this big sleeve, and he saw the pictures. And since I was the shop assistant, I was out there doing stuff. And he asked, he's like, oh, who took the pictures? I'm like, oh, me. He's like, oh, they're really bad. I'm like, okay.
Oh, no.
Turned out he was a photographer, commercial photographer.
Right.
So, and he's like, so, they're bad, but there's something there that I find kind of interesting. So when I come back next Friday, could you please bring 3 contact sheets? Because this was back, this was analog, always. I was shooting film. And so I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So, and that's how it all started. So every Friday when he came in, because this was during a period of time, or every other Friday, I brought 3 new contact sheets, and he basically critiqued me.
Wow.
So there was not a plan behind becoming a photographer. I never dreamed about it. It was never I never thought that would be in the stars for me.
Wow.
But that's how it started. So he really took me under his wing.
Yeah.
And after a long, like half a year or even more, he said, okay, so if you want to, continue on down this path, you need to, do something more, would you like to come and work for me as an assistant? So, and then so that's how I started. So I worked with him for a while, and that's how I kind of got into that path. Yeah.
Fascinating. And, I really love, because a lot of people, I think, can feel nervous because they look at photographers they admire and just assume that it all comes incredibly naturally to them from the moment that they were born. But actually, to hear that even you were trained by somebody to see, to see creatively and think creatively, and everybody has to start somewhere, and that's really encouraging for people who are just starting out.
So this was, like I said, by then I was like 25. I never had a plan to do photography, and working as an assistant for him, then he telling me, I've taught you everything I can. Now you need to go to school. So then I went to like a basic classic photography school 1 year here in Stockholm. And after that, I went to college to study commercial photography for 3 years. And then I started to work. So it's been a very, very long journey. And then working with commercial photography for many years before.
Did you have your own company with commercial photography, or you were working with the
I did, but I was also employed. I was employed for 6 years. So I worked I started there as a photographer, and then gradually just moved more and more into retouch. So basically I was retouching for them. So we had lots of big commercial clients. So one of the biggest one being H&M, because everybody knows H&M.
Wow,
right? So,
amazing. Yeah.
So that was my daytime job for almost 6 years.
Wow. And so going from retouching to weddings, because retouching is very just behind the computer screen, and then weddings very people facing. That was quite a shift in
it was. But I also had so much use for the skills I learned as a retoucher, because you work with other photographers' images. So when, for example, they shot a campaign for H&M, like huge campaign, and they came back from various locations with like 300 images, I was supposed to color correct density and contrast and make everything look cohesive, because it was one and the same campaign. Yes. That taught me to handle large amounts of images fairly quickly and make everything look very cohesive. And there's always people in the images. So for me, that's why I think when I started shooting weddings, it was so easy for me to edit everything seamlessly, making everything look together, stick together very nicely, because I had the experience of taking care of, loads of images fairly quickly and making it look rather good.
that is one of the challenges, I think, of a wedding day, is making the work look consistent from start to finish when you're not in control of the lighting situations. And sometimes you just think, how do I work with this? This is not, for both of our work is very bright and pastel-y, and sometimes I'm in a dark room with dark orange curtains and dark wood, and I know there are photographers who would absolutely thrive on that and make that look incredible, but that's not my arena.
No, exactly. No. And you have to work with what you're given, right? So you have to make it work. So or work around it.
That's the thing. Work around it.
Work around it. Yeah. Or being able to I'm pretty hands-on in educating or steering my clients in certain directions beforehand, so I don't end up in a dark orange room, because I tell them why. I cannot only tell them I don't want that, it's not going to look good. I need to tell them why it's not going to look good. So I'm pretty I'm pretty out there telling them you need to think of this and this and this and this, and you're going to thank me later.
That's really good. So from the moment that they book, you go through those things with them about being aware of what room they're getting ready in, and how to get the most out of their pictures.
Everything, from the minute they book with me, I start a conversation, and of course I want to hear about their plans and their dreams and everything for the wedding, and I take everything in, and then I try to help them get as much out of their photos as possible, meaning I need to be the creative director and
Yeah.
control, where we shoot, when we shoot, how much time I need for certain parts of the day.
Yeah.
And then also I talk a lot about, how beneficial it is to consider light on your wedding day, because that's going to make or break your photos. That's just how it is. Photography is about light, and I can add light, which I do quite frequently. I would live in a very dark country. I shoot, not only in the summer, but there are so many things that you can do to positively affect your images throughout the day. So
yes,
it's all about education, and also sharing things that look good, and also showing them examples that doesn't look so good, so they can actually see the difference.
So true, so true. Yeah, I've had brides who they've really wanted to book me, and I've had to be honest and say, look, I really love the sound of your wedding, but that venue is I've looked it up online or whatever. I'm thinking, I can't, I'm not a magician. I can't make that venue right. And I've actually had brides who've changed their venue.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? We're not magicians, we're photographers. And although an experienced photographer can basically work, anywhere, any venue, whatever, but it's also about managing expectations, because if you book a venue with dark interior, dark walls, basically no windows, we cannot make it look light and bright. It's just not, it's impossible. The physique of it, it's impossible.
We have a venue here in Newcastle, which is in a tree house, and it's only lit with fairy lights, and it's very dark, and I have a real love-hate relationship with it, because I always am really excited to go there, and then when I go there it's so stressful, and then I'm trying to edit the pictures afterwards, and they're so difficult, and then I deliver to the couple, they're really happy, because like you said, I've managed the expectations, and they're happy. And then I go back
and they picked it for a reason, right? They loved it. So
and then I go back to being excited and want to go back there again, and I think, why am I doing this?
And that's the thing. It's all right. I think you have to allow yourself. I feel like I have certain venues where I won't shoot. Because that it's not a good. I won't be at my best. I know other photographers are gonna rock those venues like nothing you've ever seen. Then I rather just refer those clients to someone else, instead of trying to sell them something that I know they won't probably be. I mean, even if they're like, oh, we're happy, but they're not ecstatic. So I think sometimes also it's important to remember to say thank you, but no thank you, I'm not the best fit for you. And not just book, like, sure, I can do it. Sometimes you have to just sit down and think, can I really do this at the best for them? Or maybe I just send them somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I've got local venues that I won't shoot at. The grounds, I always say to couple, the grounds are lovely, and if it's a lovely sunny day, we'll have lovely pictures. But if it's a rainy day, your pictures will
and you
not
can't control that, right? No.
And the final pictures will not look like what they're expecting from my website.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to, say no, or be very, very clear on what to expect. So
yes, amazing. So do you still work with your partner? Because you mentioned starting your business with your friend. Do you still work together now?
No, we don't. We went our separate ways a couple of years back. We shot weddings together for a number of years, and we had so much fun. We're still really, really good friends. However, she is out of weddings totally. She didn't want to continue shooting weddings, and I respect that. It's not for everyone to do it for 10 years. She's doing something else. She's working with completely other things. So I took the decision to continue on, because I really, really love what I do, and I can't really see myself doing anything else for a foreseeable future.
So what is it that you love about weddings?
I love the fact that I get to be a part of someone else's life for, a life is this long. This is one day in their life, and it's probably one of the most memorable ones, and I get to jump in there and be a part of that, all that love, the joy, the excitement, the emotion, and be totally absorbed with all the the emotion, and savor that, just like it's equally for me as for them, because I get I get swallowed up in all that, love and emotion, and I really thrive on the emotion.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I've said this before. I don't remember. I put it much nicer then than now, but it's kind of like a band-aid on my soul. I feel really comforted
Yeah,
and
yeah.
happy about others' happiness,
Wow.
and being able to just preserve it, I guess. Because every time I go back and look at it, I get, a jolt back of that happiness and love. And that's hopefully what they get as well. So
Yes.
I would have to say it's very egoistic of me, because I'm doing it for myself. I'm not really doing it for them. Well, I'm doing it for them as well. But yeah, so I'd say it's mainly because of the kick, the emotion I get out of it.
I feel exactly the same. I
Yeah.
always say it's the happiest day of people's lives, and everyone's
Yeah.
happy. It's just like the best office experience ever. So the best
Mm.
atmosphere that I just get, and I just go around with a massive smile on my face all day, and everyone
Yeah.
comments how happy I am. I just say I love my job. Like this is
Exactly, yeah. And it's kind of like my happy place, when you just
yeah,
can walk around, camera in hand, and just shoot other people's happiness, really.
yeah,
And what I also like, when we talk from a photography perspective, it is that I am is a huge difference from shooting commercially, for example, because then shooting weddings, I am hired for my eye, my creative vision, what I do. People don't really dictate what I'm supposed to. I
yeah,
show up there and I shoot from my own vision.
yes,
And that is very different from being in the commercial work, because you're a team. You have a project manager, you have an art director, you have the buyer, you have models, you have all of that stuff. So you're a creative team, and you're not the creative director. Usually you have other creative director, right? So you're basically a tool.
yeah,
And I prefer being the creative director versus the tool. So
yes,
that is also the attractive thing about wedding photography. And also that you don't really have to I mean, sure, you direct people when you shoot the portraits, but that's just such a minor part of the day.
yeah,
Basically, I just shoot what's going on.
yeah.
You're going with the flow and trying to see it from your perspective, or an interesting angle, or whatever. So I think that's also one of the things that really, really attracts me.
Yes. So going with the flow, for people who are like, what does that mean? How do you go with the flow? Do you go
Yeah.
with images in your mind that you're like, I want to create something like this? Do you see something before it happens and get into place, or do you literally just react and respond as things are happening? How do you think your brain is kind of going with the flow in the day to get
I think it's a mix of all of those things, because, like I said, preparations goes a long way. I'm very, very prepared when I go into the day. I want to know. I want to have an exact schedule on what's going to happen, and where and when and how long and who's going to be there. So I have this schedule. So I'm well prepared on the actual flow of the day, because if I am, I can react quicker, because I know what's going to happen a little bit more. It's
yes,
a little bit more control.
yes,
But I'm also I want to not direct everything, but let's say, for example, when I show up on the morning, I have already told my bride, we need this type of room. I need it to be well lit, lots of
yeah,
windows, blah, blah, blah. Keep it clean. We don't really want any garbage in our pictures.
yeah,
And when I show up, usually she's like late stages makeup, almost ready.
yeah,
And I just, you obviously go there, you say hi, you hug them, and then you quickly scan around in the room, where I'm going to put her. So I'm not afraid of moving her around. I'm just like, okay, this is where we have the best light. This is where we're going to shoot.
yeah,
And then you just let it happen. So, and I'm moving furniture, and I'm taking down curtains, and I do all kinds of stuff just to make it look nicer if I have to.
yes,
So, and that basically goes for the rest of the day as well. Obviously, not the ceremony,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they know all the things about that beforehand. So
yeah,
about light, where you're placing the ceremony, if you're outdoors, that we need even light on both of you. I have had a nightmare wedding where an outdoors wedding, super sunny day, and you have the bride in the sunlight, and you have the groom in the shade. And I bring up that picture and I show them. I'm like, this, it's gonna look like, and it's just awful, and I can't do anything.
Yes,
hands are tied.
that's
So so I do direct and arrange a little bit, both beforehand but also on the day. But then when it comes to cocktail hour, I mingle around, you do pictures, and then basically I just let it unfold and try to anticipate, what the next step is going to be, which is not always easy, because sometimes stuff happens and you're like, oh my God, what's happening over there?
Oh yeah, did you just hate when you hear a distant cheer and you think, oh, I think I'm supposed to be over there?
yeah, it's awful, and it's really difficult because sometimes guests want to chat with you, right? You're there like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I really need to be over there, and I don't want to be rude and just like bye. So yeah, it's hard. You have to navigate it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that's so true. So, you mentioned that you were thinking about becoming a priest, and you were talking about how you really connect with the almost spiritual aspect of the emotions of the day. Are you a spiritual person? Do you still have faith now? Like, is there that?
I would definitely say I'm a spiritual person. I do have faith. I have a very strong faith. I am not practicing any. I don't go to church. So I'm of Jewish descent. So it's kind of like a interesting combination. But I'm definitely very spiritual, and I think there are so many things happening in our world that we need to pick up on. You have to be open to emotion and vibes that people are sending you, and from all sorts of places in the world. I've shot weddings with all kinds of spiritual aspects or religions, and I find it just fascinating. And at the end of the day, I feel it's just one and the same thing. We all have, when we do have a faith, what we believe, it's a good force. And I don't want to name it because I think everyone should believe in what they want to believe in. But I think it's the spiritual side and the vows you take during a wedding, the ceremony, is the most important thing, obviously. And it's I think it's a mix of all those things together, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, totally. So interesting. Right. So tell me about you outside of work. What do you do? Like, what's your kind of daily routine, or what does an average week look like for you?
Yeah. That's the good thing about wedding photography. It's if you go from when you're in the wedding season, it looks one way, and when you're a little bit off season, it looks completely different. So, and right now I'm in off season. December for me is doing basically nothing except answering emails and of course conversation with couples for next year. Yes. All my weddings are delivered, the ones I've shot. I have one more to shoot in December in London, outside of London actually. Yeah. But normal day, you said in the beginning, I live on a small island in the archipelago outside of Stockholm. So basically I work from home, and if it's wedding season, I sometimes shoot 2-3 weddings a week. So it's a lot of traveling. Yes. And in between editing, of course. But basically, other than that, just when I don't work, I read. I read a lot. I'm a huge book nerd, and I read everything from crime novels to history, sci-fi fiction, true crime, all of that stuff. So that is my one and only hobby. I don't have any other hobbies outside of photography, but reading. That's it.
Do you have in your new home that you just moved into in March, didn't you? This new home. Have you got lovely views of the countryside now, and you can just sit, put your feet up, and read?
Yes, it is. It's a big difference from the city, and that's what we wanted. I guess we've been there for 15 years, and we just wanted to get out of the hectic city life. And it's very calm and quiet. We have the ocean. We can easily walk within 2-3 minutes. We're actually in the middle archipelago. So when our island ends, there are a few more islands, and then they're just open water. So it's really far out. But I really enjoy it, and my mind kind of craved it, because I felt after so many years in the city, I'm so distracted by everything. You know, everything that you have around you, the buses, the traffic, the people, the crowds really started to stress me out. I just needed to get out of there. And luckily my husband went along with it. So we just, let's go.
Do you feel that's affected your wedding season this year? Like just that, like that headspace and that calmness, has that affected the way that you photographed during this wedding?
And not the way that I photographed. I realized there was a lot of, it was a lot of more traveling for me, because now we moved so far out of the city. Before I was in the city, I was at the airport within 35 minutes to fly out. Now it's like a 2.5 hour drive to get to the airport. So and that has been a little bit harder. Now I need to travel so much more for every wedding, not only for the destination weddings that I do, but also for the actual local weddings. So a lot more travel. But on the other hand, when I'm home, it's so much more relaxing. And as I said, I can have my office. I don't have to rent an office space anymore. I can just work from home, which is amazing, I think. And so for me, it's been both. It's like, it's been a little bit more difficult, but also easier in other ways.
Yes, because you photograph all over Europe.
Yes, yeah, I do. Yes, so I have about, this year I had, I shot 26 weddings, and of those 11 or 12 weddings were abroad. So
yes. Do you find 26 is the sweet spot for you? That's just enough to be busy, but not too busy. Do you always do 26, or is that just the way it was?
No, I did 29 the year before that, and the year before that was over 30. So I'm just going down a little bit every year. So I think my sweet spot is probably between 20 and 25.
Yes.
If it's a good spread, you know. So for next year, I think I'm going to be around 20, something like that would be a good number for me. Because it is hard. And I also want to be able to serve my clients the very, very best I can. So I really want to be able to really take care of the clients, you know, that comes through my door. And so around 20, 25 maximum would be a good number. But if you shoot more throughout the year, I guess you can have more weddings. But during summer, like peak season, it's already stressful as it is. So I did 9 weddings.
Wow.
In August alone. And that was a lot. So won't book 9 weddings for August next year.
I so often hear of photographers, you know, who are saying they're shooting 60, 70 weddings a year. And I'm thinking, how is
that even possible?
I'm the same as you. I've been slowly getting lower and lower, and I'm around 20, 22 weddings. And that's lovely.
Sure, you could probably do it, but then you'd never be at home. And I have a family, and that's more important to me. So, but I think our season here is so very, very short. It's like we're in Scandinavia, right? People get married end of May to beginning of September. That's it.
Yes, right.
So it's super duper short. So, and that's why I also do, you know, a little bit more of the destination circuit, because then I can just, you know, my season is a little bit longer. So
yes, that makes sense. Yeah, because your days are very short. We were mentioning before.
Now it's already getting dark now. So it's like 2:30. Yeah, it's getting dark. So I
went to Stockholm for New Year's Eve one year with my brother, and so I think coming up about 11 and going down at 3 or something.
Right about something like that. We've been really lucky now because it's been sunny, so then it's not, you know, it's nice. It's not that cold. We have like 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. And sunny. So today has been really, really nice, but it's very short. Now it starts to go down, and I think it went up around maybe 9:30 or something. So it's just like a very few hours.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? We spent New Year's Eve with one of my brother's friends' family that had a house out overlooking a lake, and their bathroom was all glass, because it was underneath the house, so there was nobody could get to that bit of the house. So you had so they just had all glass. So I was sitting
beautiful.
on the loo looking over this
looking out.
amazing lake. It was one of the most surreal
Beautiful.
experiences of my life.
Yeah, we have tons and tons of water. We have so many lakes.
Wow.
And we're here around, Stockholm is all islands. It's all built on islands. So it's just bridges and boats everywhere. And out here where I am, in the Stockholm archipelago alone, I think it's around 28,000 islands.
Yeah.
Not, people don't live on all of them, but on a lot of them, people actually live. So they commute with boats. So they come in with the boat. I'm just we have two harbors here. So we have one big and one small. So they just commute with the boats. They come in and they jump on the bus and they go into the city. So
amazing.
In the summer, it's absolutely amazing. It's like being on a holiday island. It's so relaxing and it's so pretty.
Wow.
A little bit harder in the winter, but luckily we have everything we need out here. We have, you have a grocery store and you have the bus stop and everything. So it's not like rural, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely a big change from the city.
Absolutely. With you photographing all over Europe, are there places locally that you love just as much? Because I find that I'm just on the edge of Northumberland here in the castle, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's some gorgeous coastlines, and I feel like I could be anywhere in the world, just half an hour from my house. Have you got areas like that near you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have here just like the next island over. There are actually two venues there that are absolutely beautiful, and I love to shoot there, and it's just by the water, and they're bright and nice. One of them is actually an art gallery, also a venue. It's absolutely beautiful. So I am so thrilled every time I get to shoot on either of those venues, because it's not only is it like 20 minutes from my house, but they are stunning, and the scenery outside is just spectacular. So I'm I love working locally. It's really, Sweden and the Stockholm area is super beautiful. Yeah. And so I try to work more locally, but it's difficult because in Sweden also we don't have this tradition historically we don't have this tradition with, huge weddings with big budgets. So people don't really invest the same way in it as, the American clients, for example, is huge difference.
Yes.
So they don't really have budgets for this and this and this and all of that. So, and I read somewhere recently, we have it's a small country, right? So we have about 50 registered partnerships every year. Partnerships, weddings, marriages, whatever you want to call them. So out of those 50,000 partnerships are, like 25% is just going to the city hall, signing a paper.
Really?
And then the rest have an actual wedding with guests. Yeah. But the average budget for a normal wedding here in Sweden, the average is about, I think it's about 30,000 euros.
Right.
Which is not a whole lot, considering venue, food, alcohol, everything. So when it comes to photography, people don't have such healthy budgets as maybe one would like, if I put it nicely.
Interesting. So is that how you ended up photographing in Europe a lot? Was because they were just the brides that were coming to you, or was that a conscious decision that you made to pursue weddings in other countries? Or
no, I think that, like much of the stuff in my life, things just kind of happen, and I think they happen for a reason, but I'm not in control of it because, universe. And so since I am the daughter of an immigrant.
Oh, right.
So I think, I have relatives all over the world, lots of them living in America, in Israel, in Germany. So we've always spoken English with each other.
Yes.
So since I'm a mix myself, I think I kind of attracted that type of client.
Right.
So they I don't know why, but the very, very first website we did for two brides was in English, because it was just natural to me. And then you attract a certain type of client. So after shooting, like those friends' weddings was like 3 friends or friends of friends. We put up a website and it was all in English. And I think we just attracted a certain type of client
Yeah.
that very often, if I'm just, I'm generalizing, of course, but if I should, say something about it, it's like one was from Sweden and the other one was from some other country.
Yes.
So, so that's how it kind of started with that type of client. And very, very often it was, we don't live in Sweden, but I have a Swedish boyfriend or I have a Swedish girlfriend. So we're coming back to Sweden to get married. So that is still to this day my most typical client.
Interesting. Yeah. Not local people because of the culture around.
Yeah.
The ceremony. So fascinating.
And I love doing those mixed culture weddings because, to be honest, they're most fun.
What is your heritage then? Your family heritage?
Like I said, I'm Jewish.
Jewish
on my mother's side, yeah. So, and my dad's Swedish. So, Israel, Sweden, yeah.
Amazing. So, what would you say has been the highlight of your career so far? Looking back over this 10 years, what memories particularly come to mind that you think, oh, that was a good day? Or experience? Or...
Hopefully, my highlight hasn't come yet.
Ah, okay.
But I have.
Upwards.
I have had tons of amazing experiences, of course. Couple of things that stands out was obviously shooting a wedding in Israel.
Wow, amazing!
That was pretty amazing, and also shot a wedding in Morocco in the desert outside of Marrakesh.
Oh, I've seen those pictures; they were amazing.
But also, to be honest, it's an amazing experience, and I wouldn't, not want to do it for the world. And I would love to go back, but also I want to say to people maybe just starting out, wanting to get destination work and stuff, it's also really, really hard. It's really, really hard.
You travel on your own to destination weddings?
Sometimes I travel there alone, but then I have an assistant on site.
Right.
And sometimes I just bring someone with me. And the thing is, it is hard work. It looks super glamorous from the outside, but it's just really hard work. And in, like, for example, the wedding we did there in the desert, it was like 350 guests in the middle of nowhere. There were no lights. There were so hard to move around. Like, the logistics of everything was just really, it was a huge area getting from point A to point B, and it was just really hard. It was fun, but it was really, really difficult to shoot. But that was, and also, of course, booking your first destination wedding is always something that's gonna stand out. And the very first wedding I booked as a destination wedding was in Positano in Italy.
Oh, yes.
Shot, a lot of weddings there since then. But the very first one, of course.
Terrifying place to drive. Terrifying. The roads are tight.
It is.
Drivers are mental.
Yeah. And like I said, I like a good challenge. So I flew to Rome and I drove there.
Wow.
So, yeah. And it's a super cool place and everything, but also, again, Positano it's really hard to work there because it is so difficult, because you can't drive within the city. No. It's just walking, tons of stairs, you go up and down and up and down, and there are a billion tourists. It's like, literally, when you see a photo that I took on the beach of a couple in Positano, there are a gazillion tourists in the background. Wow. So that's where my retouch skill comes in very handy afterwards, because it's like you can't escape them. And it's so crowded. So I remember that first wedding very, very fondly. It was amazing in so many ways, but it was also kind of like a shock, coming there and realizing it's like, okay, so we need to park the car outside of the city and then just walk around with all of the tons of our gear. Like,
oh my goodness. Yeah.
Okay. So it's hard and it's hot, you're sweating. It's like 37 degrees and, the sun is like this. And
yes, so, I had a wedding near Positano this year, but actually the bride had to move the wedding back to England because her dad was very sick.
Oh,
but everything had already been paid for. So, and it was the week after. So me and my husband still went. So we experienced all the roads and experienced the heat. I felt like if I stood up for too long, I felt like I was faint. And I thought, gosh, like, actually, I think, I regularly shoot all over Europe.
every year, but I've never been to the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
That was something else.
It's tough. It's really, I have had brides fainting, like literally fainting from the heat.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had a bride, she was from Hong Kong. She's like, but it's super hot in Hong Kong. You know, it's very humid and I can handle it. Literally like 2 hours into the day with this.
Wow.
And this was end of July, beginning of August, which I would never plan my wedding on the Amalfi Coast around those dates. I'm like, when people ask, because sometimes I have clients that ask, when is the best season, you know, we want to have, I'm like, oh, spring or fall. That's it. I would never recommend anyone to have a wedding there in July or August, because it's just like, but she literally had like, I need to go lay down. It was so hot. So it's hard. But the thing is, with any, I think, destination, it is awesome to be able to go to these beautiful spots where I would never have come to if it weren't for my job and, you know, the amazing clients that you have. But people should also realize, you know, it's not as glamorous as it looks. And you work really hard. You fly in, you pick up your rental car, you drive there, you die at the hotel room, you go up the next day, you shoot for many hours. Hopefully you get something to eat, you die again in your hotel room, and then up again next morning, and then you drive back to the airport. So because you need to be back, I need to be back because probably I need to be home working at, you know, editing for a couple of days, and then you have the next wedding. So
and
it is
like
tough.
I said before, I've got, you know, I have got venues locally that end up being some of my best work for the year, and I've been all over Europe, and yet it was the one down the road that I'm like, oh, that was a really good
exactly
thing. Sometimes you don't have to travel far to get
exactly. The grass isn't greener always on the other side. So
let's talk a little bit about creative confidence, because we mentioned before we started this recording how we're our own worst critics, and how we're often looking at our own work thinking, I don't think this is any good. And it's always, because I feel like that, and I know people look at me and think, oh, SJ's got it all sorted and she knows exactly what she's doing, and I turn up to every shoot thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, I think I've forgotten how to take pictures. And so it's always encouraging for me to hear that other people feel the same. So you mentioned that you feel the same about your own creativity.
I am never, like I said, you know, I'm never really happy with my work. I always feel like there is something that I can do better, or something that is lacking. Like, if I just did this and this and this and this. So it's amazing when you get compliments, when people are like, oh, I love your work. And I'm like, I'm super grateful to hear it, but I cannot see it myself. I always feel that I'm striving for something more, and I'm never content, and which is both a blessing and a curse, because you're never really happy, but you're also on that, you know, on the other side, you kind of want to do better all time. So
moving forward,
it is, you know, every single wedding, when I get my scans back, I'm like, I look at them quickly first. I'm like, okay, this is all shit. And then I put it away. And then I have to give it a couple of days, and then I can go back, and then like, okay, at least this one is not shit. And then I can start to single out images that I feel, you know, makes the cut. But every single time, I don't remember one time that I've just like, oh God, this is so great. It's like, that doesn't happen for me ever.
So interesting. So, and I absolutely love your work, and anyone listening, if you haven't seen Isabelle's work before, you can come to the Facebook group. I've posted some of her pictures in there, and they are incredible. So it's just so encouraging to hear that even, you know, behind a lot of these amazing pictures that a lot of us photographers look at and aspire to, is just the same kind of person as we are, in the same doubts and insecurities, and we're all just doing our best to express what we see and what we feel, and what's in front of us, and like you said, sometimes, you know, it's embracing that journey, that's just the life of a creative. You just always,
I think so. And I think, like I said, it's also a good thing, because what would happen if you were just like, oh, I'm so content, I'm just like, I'm so good. I don't think you would be a good either, you know, creative person or business person, or, you know, serving your clients right. I think you always have to have that in you, wanting to go the extra mile, doing a little bit better. What can I do for next year to improve? You know, I always have tons of ideas, and not all of them get implemented, of course, but I try to like, what can I do to make the client experience better for next year? What can I do shooting wise?
Yes.
Make this better for next year. I always vow, every year I vow to learn something new for next season. Could be, whatever, it could be small things, could be big things, but I always like, okay, I want to try this, I want to learn this. And sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes I realize, oh, this is not for me. I'm sorry, but
I love the double exposures that you do. You've done a few.
I'm obsessed with them, and I tell my clients they don't always work out. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it anyway because I love the process and I love the surprise, because sometimes they just turn out freaking amazing, and I want to create at least one piece of art from every single wedding that I do that is not necessarily a photograph. Just I want to do a piece of art, and so I always try to do at least 1 or 2 takes of double exposures, test for every wedding. I don't get the time every single wedding. I don't get the time to do it because sometimes it's just really rushed, and because I need time to to explore and to do that. But I try to do them for every wedding, and sometimes they just turn out freaking amazing, and sometimes they turn out like what? It's like poo. But I'm very upfront. I'm very honest with my clients. I say, maybe they won't turn out, but maybe they will. So just give me a few minutes just to do it. And I'm really obsessed with them.
Sorry. What I was going to say, what are your targets for next year? Because you said every year you kind of think, right, I want to do this next year. I want to learn this next year. Like, do you have targets for the coming year that you want to improve with your photography?
Yes. With photography, yes. I've been shooting film for weddings for the last, let's see, we're 20 next year. Okay, I went back to shooting films on weddings in 2013. So I've been doing it for 7 years. So this year I bought a digital camera. I didn't have a digital camera for years, and I bought a Fuji GFX. So I wanted to try to see if I could implement it in my workflow this year, and I've been doing it a little by little. It's kind of a hassle because then you have to edit everything together. So suddenly I was back behind the computer again, which I'm not super. I mean, in the summer I prefer to be outside, but so right now for next year for my photography is that I do want to shoot a little bit of digital for some parts of the day, but I want to implement, a better workflow for it. So that's what I'm aiming to do. And, but also I want to get better at, I'm shooting a lot with off-camera flash. I want to do more of that. So introduce it even more into my work. I do it now for the dancing and for receptions, but I want to maybe start implementing a little bit more advanced light techniques. That's what I'm interested. I'm playing around at home. I have my kids, my youngest kid and his friends horsing around here. I'm like, I need a bunch of people, so I set them up, and I'm trying out different types of lights and stuff like that. So that is probably something that I think is very interesting. It involves a lot of technique and a lot of gear, which means I have to carry that with me, which I kind of don't like, but I like the results. So you have to just, deal with it, bring the stuff, do the thing. But I know a lot of people are just slimming down instead, just like less and less gear. I'm kind of doing the opposite.
Hilarious.
I'm just like more, all these film cameras, and now I have a digital camera and more lights, and
But it's all for fun, you're just wanting to explore.
It is, and I have to admit, I do get easily bored. So I always want to try new things. So I don't want it to become a routine. I want to go in and I'm like, I'm going to try this new thing. Maybe it doesn't even work out. I don't do it during crucial parts. So I make sure I get all the safe shots that I need. But I don't want to get bored. I want to try new things, new lights, new cameras. I accidentally ordered a Sony A7 blah blah something during Black Friday. I've never shot a Sony before. I heard good things about them, so I ordered one. So
accidentally bought one.
yeah, 2 days ago. It hasn't arrived yet. So, but you know
that
what?
The story that you're telling to Daniel. That's your story. You're sticking with it.
Yeah. No, he's yeah. So I just want to try, and if I don't like it, I'm just going to sell it again. So it doesn't have to be more difficult than that. So we'll see. Yeah.
I love that. I love how creative you are. You just have such a passion for the art, of photography. And I really love that. And it shows in your work that I think, within the sphere of film photography and fine art photography, I think your work particularly stands out as being as just pushing the boundaries and progressive, the double exposures. You're just really trying to create something fresh and new. And I love that about your work. So it really is wonderful. Tell us about your workshops that you run and how people can get more information about them.
I do a couple of workshops each year. I've done one in Sweden, but a lot of the times they're out in Europe. So I've had workshops in Spain, in Italy. I was part of a workshop in Greece. Oh. So for next year, we're planning a workshop. It's probably going to be in April. Mm-hmm. And right now, by the looks of it, it might be in France. We're not 100% sure yet of the location, but they are, of course, about film photography, but it's not only for film photographers. It's for wedding photographers. Yeah. We're in like starting a phase of discussing it a little bit. I wanted to do a workshop that talks about the business side of this job, because obviously we can talk photography. I can teach you what I shoot, how I shoot, with what cameras, how I meter film, everything like that. I can throw you a beautiful setup with styled over the top with flowers and everything. But will you learn something from that?
Right.
Or will you just come home with pretty pictures? And for me, it's a huge no-no using workshops and images in your portfolio, because they're not yours. Yes. You're not the creative director. You just show up there with your camera and you pull the trigger. So what I think I see a big problem in the wedding photography workshop world, it's like there's all these pretty styled shoots, but what do you really learn? What I want to do for my next workshop is, let's talk about the real stuff, the business aspects, and what do you really need in terms of tools that you can actually apply the next day when you get home from my workshop. And you can apply those tools into your business and make it better. And that could be techniques, of course, shooting or metering or whatever, but it could also be the actual business side. So what I want to do is to incorporate everything that I do in my business, from basically the first, when the inquiry comes in, when I respond, how I respond, and everything goes all the way to delivery. This is how I deliver. This is how I sell prints. Yeah. This is how my online shop is set up. Everything like that. And of course also, talk about pricing and pricing structure, and because it is a competitive market, and there are tons of good wedding photographers out there. Yeah. But I think there are enough clients to go around. Yeah. And I just want to, if people are interested, just talking about the way I did it, I don't say it necessarily is the best way of doing it, but it has worked.
It worked for you.
Worked for me. So I want it to be a good, healthy mix of both business and practical stuff. Of course, photography as well. But for me, historically, if I think back, what I learned the most from is, one, having my own work critiqued by someone I really admire and look up to and trust. I've grown so much from that. And it is scary. It is uncomfortable. And it is like, but that has actually helped me the most. So that is something that I would highly recommend. If you're interested in going to a workshop, make sure that those types of things are included, critique of your work, of your website, of your Instagram, whatever, but also like real tools and keys to what you can do to you really use in your own business, and not only, you don't want to come home with just pretty pictures that everyone else also has. So
yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. That's where the gold is, not just taking me and my husband also teach business, and we always say that taking a picture is 5% of the success of it, and the other 95, the bit that isn't actually pressing the buttons, that's the bit that actually makes it work, and that's the bit that that's the bit that's tricky to get. And
really train your eye when I'm talking about critique.
Absolutely.
What I learned when my mentor, when he critiqued me on my work, he used his eye that was more visually trained than my eye to tell me, to point out the obvious that I didn't see. And when he pointed it out to me, I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. So that is one of the best things that I would really, really recommend.
Yeah.
Get yourself either a mentor or go to a workshop with a photographer that you really you trust, and ask for that critique, because it's going to make you a better photographer.
So good. It's such good advice. It's so scary, but it's really good advice.
It is. It's awful. It's awful and amazing at the same time.
Yeah. In my mind, I think, someone else should definitely do that.
Exactly. And then back then that was it was open critique. So everybody heard. And it's like, I'm not crying. I swear I'm not crying, but it's like, but on the other hand, it's so good also for everyone else to hear it, because they also learn.
So true. Yeah. I love that.
But good.
What I love about this conversation is just this. We've definitely established that we're all on a journey. We're all learning together, no matter whether you've been going for 10 years or you've just been going for a month. We're all learning, and there's always something new to learn and something new to master. And that's what's so exciting and thrilling. And then we can all just support each other, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
People go to get information about your workshops or to sign?
Right now, I actually took the workshop information down, because we're doing a little bit of rework, but you can always come to my Instagram, which is 2 brights with the number 2,
right,
or my website, and make an inquiry. But generally people often just email me or direct message me. My husband is walking out. Sorry about that. Direct message me on Instagram, and I will, I keep in touch with them, and I don't really market the workshops that much, because I want to also keep them very personalized.
Yes.
So I usually, like I said, I only do a few every year, and I want to make sure they are really, really helpful and really beneficial. So the best way is just to get in touch, and I will talk to them about it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, Isabelle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Nice. It was lovely seeing your pretty face.
Thank you.
I hope I get to meet you for real sometime.
Oh, that would be so nice. I would really enjoy that. You've got such a lovely energy about you, and I've got serious hair envy. You've got amazing hair. Oh my God. I want to grow it big.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, Isabelle. Well, that's great. And like I said, if you would like to see more of Isabelle's work, follow her on Instagram. You can get in touch about the workshops, or come over to the Love Light Facebook group. You'll see some of her works posted there, and we can all swoon at her amazing double exposures. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you produce for the rest of the year as you progress with on-camera, off-camera flash as well. So thank you so much, Isabelle.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more interviews, tips and inspiration in the Love Light Fine Art community on Facebook. You can also follow along with each new episode on the Love Light YouTube, podcast and Instagram. And don't forget to visit www.sarahjaneethan.co.uk/lovelight for information on training, real-life wedding workshops and online courses to develop your own fine art photography and connect with more of the clients you love.